Welcome back to Saturday Morning Bakes. I know it's Sunday, but I have been having trouble lately getting videos out on time. Luckily, I do not think that there is enough of an audience for this channel for that to matter. So you all will still enjoy it. Today we are making something called Mexican coffee buns, which you saw from the intro. It is just this like magical coffee crunchy coating on top of super soft, like pillowy soft milk bread, which I showed you all how to do last time. We'll revisit it this time. And it's interesting because it's a Mexican coffee bun, but it has really made its way into Asian bakeries, Korean bakeries I saw last time. And so yeah, it's really, really good. And yeah, let's start. So with most Asian style milk breads like this, which is kind of like a brioche dough, it starts off by cooking some of the flour and some of the water first. And what this does is it gelatinizes, it cooks off some of the starches, and that allows the starch to really absorb a lot more liquid than it normally would. So this not only provides like stabilizing power for the dough, but the dough is able to trap in a lot more moisture, hence making the bread a lot more fluffy. So recipe to this whole bread, that's all going to be down below. So what I do with this dough first is I knead it at like low to medium speed for 5 to 6 minutes before adding in a plop of butter, which is going to enrich the dough some more. And then afterwards, I knead it again for another 6 to 8 minutes until we can create that window pane effect where we stretch out the dough, but it actually doesn't tear. What that shows is that the dough is strong enough to hold in all of the bubbles that will be created during cooking. And it is much easier to use an electric mixer than to do this by hand because it can take quite the whiles. So turn it into kind of like a ball shape. It's easier to expand, I think, that way. And then stick it into an oiled bowl for, you want to cover it warm place right around an hour until it kind of doubles in size. You saw how sticky that dough was at the beginning, and it looks like, you know, when I was trying to fit it into the bowl, I absolutely had no skill, which I may not have, but it is a wet dough that is able to really expand. I mean, not so wet that it is liquidy and then it can't hold any bubbles, but a wet dough is easier to be fluffier later when you bake it, just because there's more moisture content. It's easier for the the gases from the yeast to just kind of expand because the dough is not that harsh, it's not that rough, right? So you are going to cut this into, I think, 12 pieces in total for that dough, but I only made half the recipe here. And then we're just gonna form it into balls. So I'd love to tell you that by turning them into balls before filling them with a pat of butter, that it would be easier to get them back into ball shape later. But the truth is, I completely forgot that I needed to fill these buns with giant pads of butter. So we're just doing that now. Yeah. So the best part of these buns has to be this topping. Like if I could just bake it onto my fingers and just eat them that way, I totally would. Yeah, just a really nice crunchy, it's like a sweetened crunchy coffee topping. So traditionally the Mexican bun toppings included an egg or an egg white, but there's so much flour in this. There's already that kind of binder element and that crunchiness element. So I just substituted that with a little bit of plant milk that you saw at the end. So afterwards, you just want to stick this into a piping bag. If you don't have one, just a Ziploc bag. And if you don't have that, just like smear it on top of the buns. I think it'll work. I think it will. When I used to work at the bakery, I used to be so afraid of like the owner watching or the head baker watching me do things, and so like doing something like this would have been completely miserable. After doing 6 of these, what I have realized, as I mentioned that smearing option, was that it really doesn't matter how great your piping is and how steady the flow is. It's just all of this melts down. It melts downwards. So as long as you don't have too big of a gap and it doesn't look too horrible, it's gonna turn out fine. these breads smelled so good right out of the oven, like easily one of the most perfume, aromatic, like delicious smelling buns that I have made. Of course, the inside looks like it's kind of deflated. That's because there's a big pad of butter inside. Definitely have one, because if you have two, you're gonna get diabetes. But if you have one, I think it's gonna be okay. So I hope you all enjoy and do come back next time. Bye.